Hi, this is Shauna from the D'Angelo Center Foundation, and I'm here today with Casey Gardner and some attendees. We're going to talk about the worrying child, or maybe, as we said, worrying adults. Casey, thank you for being with us. Um, Casey is a child whisperer. I absolutely love her, which is why I ask her to do these trainings over and over again. She's a favorite of parents and a favorite of educators because she gets it. So, Casey, we'll go ahead and let you tell your longest title in the world and just guide us through everything. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys all for coming. My name is Casey Gardner. I am a social emotional learning counselor for gifted and talented. But for 20, my education is I'm a school social worker. And I worked in special ed for 23 years. And then the last 7, I've been in gifted ed because I just fell in love with kids who are twice exceptional. So they're gifted and have a learning difference. And now my presentation went away again. So let's try sharing. I guess I can't let people in. You'll have to do that, Shauna. So these are some questions um, that kids are worrying about right now. I don't know if you saw the article from Lakewood High School from, I think she's actually, I don't know what she teaches, social studies maybe, but their attendance is way down because people are afraid of ICE. They're afraid they're going to get taken. They're afraid their friends are going to get taken. Um, Affording college, what if, all the social stuff, what if parents can't help with like homework? These things are big. And I was telling some people that got here a little early that this is year 30 in education for me, and I have noticed a huge increase in anxiety, and I wondered why. So I've been just trying to read everything that I could, and I recently came across the book The Anxious Generation, and it was huge ahas for me, and it makes complete sense. So that and Make Your Worrier a Warrior are the 2 books that we're going to mostly use here tonight. So where are all these worries coming from, and what do we do to manage them? I love this girl, able to jump to a worse conclusion in a single bound. And she's saying, oh, good grief, these tights are too tight. I think I'm going to die. And I know a lot of kids like this, and you probably do too. Everything is a worry, even when things are going great. And then, of course, it's not just girls. Boys have a lot of anxiety as well. That's a big difference. It used to just be more female, not exclusively, but more common. And now a lot of boys are having a lot of anxieties as well. Um, this just cracks me up. That game used to make me jump, when all the pieces popped up. So that is where it's a little joke where anxiety might have started. And boy, my life's together for about 45 seconds. So this is a kid that you may have seen. Um, a lot of times anxiety looks very different. They could be withdrawn, angry, they deny there's a problem, emotionally numb, they might play aggressively, recreate past traumatic situations, they might avoid new situations, develop bodily symptoms such as pains, aches, racing heart, all those things. Um, she looks sad to me more than anxious. And so I recently found this. I've used an anger iceberg forever, and I just found an anxiety one. And what I really like is, with an iceberg, what you see above the water is a lot less than what's underneath. And so you really have to dig deep and find out what's driving the behavior. Because if they're screaming and yelling at you, you're thinking they're angry, but maybe they're just really sad, or they've been rejected, or they're confused. You just don't know unless you ask the questions. We teach kids from the very beginning, starting in kindergarten, about the wizard or the lizard brain, or the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. And we really try to emphasize that your big part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, is where your logic is, and the amygdala or your lizard brain is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Um, and so it really helps kids to understand how their brain works at a level that's developmentally appropriate. And so it's, I have not met a kid who doesn't like learning about their brain. This is a little video. We teach kids about what it means to flip your lid. I don't know if everybody uses this, but I've used it at every school I've been at, and I think it's great, and it's pretty short. So we tested the sound, so it should work.
The more you understand how your brain works and how thoughts and emotions interact, the more control you can have over your thoughts and emotions. It's your brain. It's time for you to start controlling your own thoughts and emotions. So let's talk about how thoughts and feelings interact. We're going to break it down using a visual, the hand model. We're going to use our hand for this. Your thumb, folding it in, is the middle of your brain, your amygdala. Your fingertips, folding it around, is your prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain. We'll come back to this in a second. Our amygdala is really important in serious situations. For example, if you see a fire, it alerts you into action. It cuts off access to your prefrontal cortex where you think and reason, which is great. You don't need to calculate just how long it will take for the house to burn down. You just need to move. Back to your hand. Your amygdala in the center, with the fingers curled around, flips the prefrontal cortex lid. Flip the lid. Try it with me. Put your thumb in the middle, hold your fingertips, and force your fingertips over with your thumb, the amygdala. This could save your life in the fire situation. So we need our amygdala, but here's the problem. Your amygdala makes mountains out of molehills. So when there isn't a fire, and just say a pop quiz, your amygdala may react the same and flip your lid when there's no need to. When your lid is flipped, that's when your thoughts and emotions become muddled. When this happens, it means your thoughts are driven by your amygdala, and they are often distorted. This can fuel your worry or anxiety. So your lid is still flipped, and you need your prefrontal cortex to perform well on that pop quiz. So you have to find a way to get the prefrontal cortex to come down so you can think.
Okay.
The more you understand.
Okay, so this is the book that is, I think, fantastic. It talks about a play-based childhood versus a screen-based childhood. It's got a lot of great stuff, and again, really quick video.
A new book getting a lot of buzz looks at how the rise of social media has caused an epidemic of social and psychological problems among children and teens.
It's called The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. It's written by Jonathan Haidt, who's a social psychologist, and he joins us now. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
My pleasure. Good morning.
So I think, we all know having kids that those phones are a big part of the problem, but I didn't realize this is a whole thing. I'm thinking back, and you talk about how when we were growing up, it was play-based childhood, and this is a phone-based childhood. And talk about the difference in the impact.
Sure. For millions of years, our ancestors played when they were kids. That's how kids wire up their brains. Anyone who's had a puppy or a kitten knows that they need to play, play, play. And kids did that up until around 2010. Between 2010 and 2015, everything changes. In 2010, kids have flip phones, and they use that to text each other, say, let's meet up. They still talk to each other in school. But by 2015, everyone has a smartphone, front-facing camera. The girls are mostly on Instagram, high-speed internet. And now kids are doing this all day long. They're looking at their phones. So even between classes in our schools, kids are on their phones. There's not as much laughter as there used to be. So my argument is human childhood kind of vanished between 2010 and 2015 as our kids moved into the virtual world for most of their day.
So we're going to talk about a lot of his theories. And so the first part he just talked about, but he shows that the smartphone is doing the most damage for girls. Specifically Instagram, because of all the filters. So people, especially girls, are posting on Instagram and they don't look anything like they do in real life. Boys have the same issue with video games. Sometimes they dip into pornography, and that's doing the most damage for the boys. He says that there's two main errors in parenting, and I would add educating as well. One is that we're overprotecting kids in real life, and we're underprotecting them online, especially during that vulnerable puberty period. So his reforms are No smartphones before high school, basic phones only, limited apps, no internet until ninth grade or around the age 14. In his book, he talks about girls that have become very depressed, very withdrawn. When they withdraw the smartphone, within about a month, they're back talking with their family, having conversations, sharing at mealtime. So it's, I know I'm going to irritate kids with this, but his research is pretty profound. No social media until age 16. Let them get through that vulnerable period of brain development. And he calls it the fire hose of social comparison and the algorithmically chosen influencers. He wants phone-free schools. So you store the phone, you store the smartwatches, any personal device that can send or receive texts go in a locker or locked pouches throughout the day. He says that schools should be doing this, but more importantly, parent groups. You know, your son or daughter is in this group, talk to all the other parents and say, let's wait. Let's wait on the smartphones. Let's wait on the social media. And let's make that the norm in our group. We can only control our group. And there's been some success with that, of course. You know, it's a very different world from when I grew up, where you rode dinosaurs to school. And it's not always safe. I mean, you want to have a way to contact your kid. I get it. But, you know, there are different ways, like after school, you can put your smartwatch back on and be able to text your parents, or you can get a more limited phone and be able to text, you know, mom or dad and say, I'm walking home now, whatever. And this, as a social worker, was the most significant part for me, that we've gone away from unsupervised play and childhood independence and allowing kids to naturally develop those social skills, overcome the anxiety, learn to solve problems, become self-governing young adults. I mean, when I was a kid, it wasn't weird because, you know, the older kids stayed with the younger kids. We'd ride to a penny candy store a town over in Massachusetts, and the road that we rode on, the cars were going 55. We didn't have helmets, you know, and our parents didn't know where we were. They knew we were going to Dover County Store, but they didn't know where we were. So it's pretty interesting stuff. This is the other book. The middle one is the one that I have, and the one on the left is the newer version. But there's a book for kids, the Warrior Workbook, that kids can go through, but they also have the one at the bottom, From Warrior to Warrior, with the adults with the wires or rope, whatever. That's more for teens and adults. One thing about this book is they talk about a worry monster. Teens don't really connect with a worry monster, little kids do. But so that's why I like that they have the older book. And a lot of older kids have found ways to deal with the worry monster, that it's not a baby thing. And they've gotten over it because it's helped them. So this is Dan Peters, the author. Again, a quick little video.
Let them avoid it. It just gets bigger. And it takes a lot of courage to help kids face their fears and face their worries, particularly when they don't know they even have them in the first place. That's why we're talking about a whole model of looking at how to talk to them about the worry monster and how it works in their brain and in their body. We have to help them face it. They have to face the fear, even scary ones. And then again, we have to use our big frontal lobe over our little amygdala. So, this is big. Unfortunately, and this is why we want to get this word out to everyone, most people never ever learn that our thoughts determine our emotions. Such a simple concept that neuroscience has been around. It's been around for probably about 50 years now. How do we get this a part of curriculum? How do we get this a part of our household? How do we get this a part of our community? That when someone is feeling scared, also very sad or depressed, that they have a particular type of thinking that may or may not even make sense, to who they are that is responsible for their awful, anxious feelings and corresponding emotions and behavior. So the first thing is to really help our kids say, what are you thinking right now? Now, older kids can do this quite well, and insightful kids can do this quite well. And we'll talk about the subset of kids that either are too young or don't have the insight yet to do this. But really, it's to go through a process of what are all the things you're thinking right now? And then you start to do a little scientific inquiry with them, because remember, you're on the team. You're on the same team. And basically what you're going through a process of looking at, is this thought true? Is this true? Can you prove it? Can you prove that something's going to happen to me? Can you prove that you're going to fail the test? Can you prove that no one's going to like you? Well, what happened last time? Oh, well, Johnny was mean to you? Well, what about Sophie and Susie and Jim? Oh, they weren't? Oh, okay, so one of the 4 people weren't so nice to you. Okay, so you're right. But didn't the thought say that everyone's going to be mean to you? Oh, okay, so maybe the worry monster was tricking you. Interesting. And when you start to go through these with your kids, you will identify the pattern. Everyone has their own type of what we call cognitive distortions or irrational thoughts. We all have our favorites. Catastrophic thinking, like the worst thing's going to happen. Black or white thinking, which is everything's always bad or everything's always good. There's lots of different ones, and you'll get to know your own and your kids' favorite one.
Okay. So here's just a little graphic that our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our behaviors, and there we are in the middle. And like he said, a lot of times kids don't even know that they're anxious. We have to teach them what these feelings mean, starting very young. That, I think appropriate self-disclosure, like a car cuts you off, and even if you swear, wow, that made me a little nervous. I was afraid we were going to get hurt. Appropriate, not like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose our house to the 6-year-old, but when something happens and they witness it, let them know how you feel, because that's how they're starting to learn to identify their own feelings. And let them know this whole process. And it takes time. It takes time to understand. I've studied this for years. Shauna's daughter knows way more about the brain than I ever will, but it's important stuff. So we want to let the kids know that they're going to learn how to use their thinking brain to overcome their emotional brain. And talk about survival or the fight or flight response. Now they've expanded that to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. My newest mill dog rescue is a fawner. Like, I'll do something scary and she's licking me. And if I didn't know that was a fear response, I would think, oh, look, she's giving me kisses. I can barely pick her up. She spent, almost 6 years in a 30-inch by 30-inch cage. I can pick her up. She's getting better. I've had her since November 1st. But when I'm got her in the tub, giving her a bath, she's licking. We want to talk about the amygdala and how when the amygdala is in control, it shuts off our access to our logical part of our brain, and what adrenaline does to us. Adrenaline really impacts our health. It affects our brain, heart, lungs, stomach, arms, legs, and too much really will hurt us. And then talk about those whoosh feelings, like all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with something bad's going to happen, or overwhelmed with I'm really afraid, or I'm really angry, and start talking about that and normalizing it, because it all is normal. I mean, there's nothing good or bad about feelings. It's what we do with them. And that's an important thing for kids to say, because as a kid, I was told it wasn't ladylike to be angry. So still, as a 63-year-old, when I'm angry, I cry, and that makes me mad because I'm not sad. I'm angry. But we have to stop messing kids up like that. So these are some theories on what's happened to increase the anxiety, and I know it's Reader's Digest. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to how do we help? And again, I can't see you, so just speak out.
Speak up, or you can type in the chat and I will address any questions with Casey too.
And it's okay if you don't, because I know it's a lot of information that we threw at you quick. At the end, and you'll be able to find this presentation, the recording on the DeAngelis Foundation. My email is at the end, my personal email, not the school. And so feel free at any point to send me questions, because I know it takes a long time to kind of digest all this information so that it makes sense. All right, well, we'll move on. So kids don't like to feel worried or scared, neither do adults. And if we're going to use the worry monster or whatever theory we're going to use to talk about all these anxieties, we want to make the kids feel like it's not part of them, it's a bully, and it's impacting them, but that they have the power to get rid of it, to drive it away, that they're in control of their thoughts and their feelings, and they're not going to let this third person in or second person in and control things. This is the most important thing I think that we teach kids all through school, but starting in kindergarten. And there's in the coping strategies, we did a ton of different breathing ones. We're only going to talk about 2 today because there's so much more. But the breathing exercise, you know, one, we always have our lungs with us. And so if we're stressed or we're nervous about, kids are taking CMAS right now, so there's a lot of nervousness in the rooms. You can feel it in the school if you're someone who picks up those kind of things. So this one is more popular with the younger kids, but some of the older kids use it. We take our thumb and we just put it at the base of our thumb and we breathe in, hold it, and then breathe out. And then we breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. And it's important, and you go through the whole 5 fingers. Now, sometimes you have to do it 2 or 3 times or 10 times, whatever. It's important that kids know that something that's working now may not work another time, and that's okay. That's just kind of as we're growing up, depending on the situation. But this, again, is one that the littler kids like. This is called square breathing, and it's the same thing. You're breathing in, you're holding, you're breathing out, you're holding. This is the one that I do, and I literally draw the square on my leg. So nobody knows that I'm doing it. And so for older kids, that's a great way to calm themselves down in a private way. Nobody has to know that they're doing it. And by holding your breath, you're actually slowing your breathing down completely. And it helps. Sometimes you're then going, well, you gotta keep going. So then there's the cognitive things. We want to identify the thought. What am I thinking about? This is where we can help kids identify feelings. What am I thinking about? What's my thinking error? Am I scared I'm going to fail the test? Then I'm going to challenge that thought. Do you always fail? Do you have evidence that you fail? Or do I have evidence that I always fail? Because we want them to internalize this. Then we're going to work on modifying that thought. The test is going to be hard, but I am prepared. I usually do get nervous before math tests, but I usually do pretty well. And then we're going to replace that thought. You know what? I'm prepared. I studied. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do fine. When kids know these strategies, you can sometimes see them going through it, and it helps them because it's giving them the power to attack something that doesn't feel good. Anxiety doesn't feel good. It's pretty icky, as a lot of you know. One of the things in the Anxious Generation book that made so much sense for me is that we have taken away, because of the world not being as safe, we've taken away healthy risks. We used to ride down my neighbor's hill in the backyard and go off jumps. Well, everything is supervised now. You're going to soccer practice and karate and choir, and everything is with adults. We didn't have any adults. And they weren't even looking out saying, boy, that jump looks like a bit of garbage. You're going to get hurt. Nobody was worrying about that. We were outside playing. And if something really looked unsafe, we self-monitored that. You know what, Jay? I think we've gone a little too high. I think 8 feet in the air is too big. Let's go back to 3 feet. And that's something that really happened in my childhood. He built this jump that was ridiculously high, and we were supposed to go over it on a bike. No, we're not going to. So I really loved this part of the book because it talked about helping kids take steps to build confidence. So we want to talk to the kid or the teenager. What is something that you feel that you're not good at? Something new or something that you just it really scares you. And then you're going to model it for your kid. So challenge the entire family to try something new in a week, and then share it, and then see who had the worst experience. So, oh, I meant to get this video up. Let's hang on a sec. So this is an example of somebody doing exactly that. They asked their child, in this case, it was a 7-year-old. They asked him what he thought. All right, so I probably have to share again, don't I? Can you see this, Shauna?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Well, wait a second. The sound is not working here. Oh, because it's muted. Continue. I don't want to get rid of my ad blockers. All right, here we go.
Documentary called The Coddling of the American Mind. He examines the harms of over and under protecting on college campuses.
I was full of self-confidence when I was 18, but while I was in college, that disintegrated.
Mental health among Gen Z is a travesty. Almost every other person I know has some sort of mental health problem.
We face this huge mystery. Why are Gen Zers so anxious and depressed?
That is the provocative question behind this documentary and your life's work, Jonathan. Thank you so much for being here. You wrote this book, The Coddling of American Mind. This is the documentary. You also recently wrote a book called The Anxious Generation, where you really take on this issue of smartphones and tech and the effect it's having on our kids. You know, I think there are probably people who see those stats and see that and say, oh, kids are getting diagnosed more with these mental illnesses because we're aware of them more, because that's what our culture is now. Is it that, or is it the fact that kids, something's happening to our kids?
No, something is happening to our kids. If it was just diagnosis or kids being more willing to say they were depressed, then we wouldn't see increases in behavior like self-harm and suicide. But we do, and it's happening in many, many countries. It's not just us. Something happened around 2012, 2013. Levels of anxiety, depression, and self-harm skyrocketed. I'm a college professor at NYU. We all saw this. The students coming in 2014, 2015.
Sorry, guys, that's the wrong
video.
video.
Now we know they're Gen Z.
Here's the one that I wanted you to see.
I just read Anxious Generation, and at the end they have this challenge where they're like, we challenge you to like let your kid do something that without a parent, like go do something age appropriate on their own so it can build confidence for them. So all of my kids came up with an idea that they wanted to do that they could do alone. So Wells's idea is to go to Chick-fil-A and order some dinner. I gave him some money, and just we rehearsed like what to say, and like if anyone gives him a hard time to ask for the manager. Because Locke, when he was maybe 10, he went in to get some milk for me. I was like in the car with the baby, and I just gave him my card and said go get some milk, and they sent him back. The worst part is I can't watch, because I can see like if he was gonna go do something confidently, I was in there, I could see him ordering, or even if the blinds weren't shut and I could just peek in and see him like, okay, he's next in line, he's got this. No phone, no way to communicate with me. I can't see if he's in trouble. Oh my gosh, he did it! Hey!
I didn't have to ask the manager or anything.
Really?
He just gave it to me, yeah.
They just served you?
Yeah. And then, yeah.
You got your Happy Meal and...
He gave me some money.
You got change?
I want to do that again.
Really?
Yeah, that is so fun.
Do you feel like that builds confidence?
Yeah, for sure.
Like a little nervous?
Yeah. like my legs are still shivering.
Really?
But yeah, that was so fun.
Awesome. You did I'm so proud of you. Way to go.
So we got the cup in a big cup.
Okay.
And then I got...
Oh, you upgraded me?
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. I raised you right. Okay, let's eat.
So I love that because that's the kind of stuff that kids really connect with, being able to try stuff. And I asked after please move this window away. Yes. I asked my fourth graders at one of my schools how many of them had done this, and most of them had never done it because parents don't let them go into the stores. They're afraid to let them go in by themselves. All of those things. So we have to change our behavior if we want to help them build this confidence. One of the strategies that we work with kids on is to fake it till you make it. So we know that they're going to be scared. New things are coming up. It's new soccer season. Maybe it's a new team, or we're going to go to an overnight camp for the first time in the summer, or there's a end of the school year play or performance. So we're going to help them put on an Academy Award-winning performance. They're going to fake it. And so we're going to tell them, I know that you're scared, but I want you to pretend you're going to have fun. Just pretend, fake it. And I'll give you a reward if you can fake it. Now, for me, I think rewards should always be time with grown-ups because let's face it, we're busy. We come home, we do this too. And I'm just as guilty as everyone else. I just only have 3- and 4-legged kids. But, you know, a half hour of playing a game with mom or, you know, throwing a football with mom or dad or whatever. Those are the kind of things that I prefer as a reward. Plus, not everyone can afford to spend money. And I think time is such a valuable thing. So let them fake it. If they can fake a behavior or an experience, it starts changing their neurochemistry, which totally geeks me out because then it actually changes their feelings. You can help your kid trick the worry monster or whatever you want to call them and yourself into being less scared and worried, because when you're acting tough and having a lot of bravado, it starts changing everything inside, which is really pretty cool. Pleasure predicting is very similar to fake it to make it, but this is a lot of kids have that anticipatory anxiety. I know on Saturday we have a huge championship basketball game and I'm really scared we're going to lose. And they think about everything that's going to go wrong. I'm going to miss all my free throws. I'm going to throw it in and it's going to go to the other team, whatever. So once they're at the event, they're usually fine because they've done all this worry ahead of time. But so before, we want to say on a scale of 1 to 10, how awful is it going to be? 10's great, 1's awful. And then let's see how it goes. And if you're right about how bad it's going to be. And then after the event, ask them. And again, we don't want to say, haha, you were wrong. We want them to notice that it went better than they thought. Well, I thought it was going to be a 3, but it was actually a 7. I was a little scared, but I did this and it helped. And so review what went well and what didn't. And that also helps build confidence because they're looking at their feelings. And instead of us saying, but you were having so much fun. And then they say, well, you don't know anything. You don't know how I feel. Or maybe that's just the kids I work with. But it allows them to say, wow, I thought it was going to be a 3 and it was a 7. It was much better than I thought. And so then they have the power and they're seeing that they have the ability to make things better than they thought they were going to be. Challenging to them to do something less than perfect. Let them know that even if they make a mistake, that you love them and the world's not going to crash in on them. It shows them that what the worry monster is telling them about being perfect isn't true. You don't have to be perfect for people to like you. You're going to mess up a million times and your parents are still going to love you. All of these things are important, especially for kids who struggle with perfectionism and think, if I don't do things perfectly, then I'm not going to have any friends. Nobody's going to like me, blah, blah, blah. And so really emphasizing that I don't want you to do things perfectly. When I used to work in now we call them affective needs, they used to call them significant emotional disabilities programs for kids who had a lot of aggression, I'd have parents saying, well, I want you to get 100. No, 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 you don't want them to get 100. How about a 98? How about a 90? Let's not expect perfection, because then we're really setting them up to feel like nobody's going to like me if I'm not perfect. So my mom was well, if you got a B, why not an A? Ugh, don't do those kind of things. That sets people up that what they're doing isn't good enough. So we want to set realistic expectations for perfectionism, but just anytime. And there's things that have to just be done, and there's things that have to be done really, really well. So there's not failure in between success and failure. There is good enough. If you have to put the milk away, just put it in the fridge. It doesn't have to go in a certain spot. Maybe on a certain shelf is the expectation, but you just have to do it. But if you're doing brain surgery, or if you're having brain surgery, you do want your surgical team to do their absolute best and to not mess up. And that's the difference. And so when we talk to kids, they're like, oh, okay, I see the difference. Because they're so quick to think that there isn't any good enough for them. It's either it's black or white. It's I succeeded or I failed. I did well or I bombed. And they don't see that middle ground, that gray. And there's a lot of gray. Daniel Goleman is I think he's a psychologist, but he talks about the emotional climate in the home. And so a lot of times anxious kids have anxious parents. That's certainly my case. I learned as a little kid to open up the back door and just listen. Like, how is my mom today? Is she tense? And I could pick up on the energy. And if it's a cloud and you're noticing it's a cloud, you've got to change. I've got to change. We want kids to come in and feel safe. We want them to tell us what's going on and not get upset at them, even when they're telling us that they did something wrong. We want them to feel like I'm loved, and no matter what I'm feeling, people are going to listen to me respectfully and help me solve it, even when what I have to fix is that I punched my best friend, or I cheated on a test, or I stole a candy bar from the corner store, whatever. But really, this is about us checking ourselves to make sure that we've set a climate in our homes or in our schools, in my case, where kids feel safe talking to us about what's going on, and that they're not going to get in more trouble for telling us. They're actually often going to get in less trouble for being honest. We have to teach kids that positive self-talk, that you want to talk to yourself the way a good coach or a good friend would when you're down. So if you're nervous, we have to say things to ourselves that encourages us. Not, I had a kiddo this morning that was getting ready for CMAS, and they were absent on Monday. And so they're taking a different test, and they're like, I just kept telling myself yesterday that I'm already behind. It's like, are you really behind? Well, I have to do a makeup on Thursday. So does that make you behind it? You still are doing 3 sections. And so we talked about what the self-talk could be, and she did a great job and did a beautiful job on her test today, where yesterday she was a little nervous. She said she kind of worked out of it about halfway through, but still her scores are probably going to be impacted by the fact that she thought, because she had to go to the dentist, that screwed her life because she didn't do as well as she hoped. And she probably did beautiful. She's just one of my perfectionists. Here's some stuff that I show kids all the time, things that you can say to yourself when you're feeling discouraged. I say these things to myself, but it takes practice, and I certainly wasn't doing it as a kid. This is tough, but so am I. I love, I'm spacing on her name, but I can do hard things. Anyway, I may not be able to control the situation, but I'm in charge of how I respond. That's really powerful. I haven't figured this out yet. That yet means so much, that maybe you don't know how to do this math yet, but you're going to learn it. The challenge is here to teach me something. All I need to do is take one step at a time, take some breaths, and do the next right thing. So just these kind of messages to kids and helping them identify that what they're doing, if they're doing their best, then they're doing their best. I am a huge bibliotherapy nut. I have found that reading stories with kids, one, a lot of times parents are busy working a couple jobs, they're busy doing work at home. They don't always have time to read other than the bedtime stories. These are books that have problems that kids work out. And so a lot of times the kids identify with one of the characters. Oh, I do that. How did he solve it? Well, let me try solving it that way. And there's a lot of possible outcomes. And the kids aren't feeling like, oh, this is about me. I'm helping RJ in this book figure out how to solve this problem. It doesn't have anything to do with me until they realize it does. And then they're like, oh, I can do this. I have some good ideas. But I love bibliotherapy. And even with high school kids, I would read storybooks, picture books, because it's powerful. Since we're talking about anxiety, these are 6 books that are highly recommended, that deal with different aspects of anxiety. But you can always Google books for kids with anxiety, books for teens with anxiety, and look at the stars. See what other parents have said was helpful for their kid. Worry time is something that I love. Schedule a time. If you have a worrier, have them pick 15 minutes during the day when they have time to worry, and you give them their undivided attention, and they can just dump all their worries on you. And then when the time's wrapping up, it's like, okay, worry time's almost over. What do you need? And a lot of times they just feel good about getting it out. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are able to move away from the worries because they address them. And keep it at a short period of time. 15 minutes is great for, most littler kids. Teenagers might need a half hour, but usually not. I mean, nobody wants to talk about worries for 30 minutes, but just that aspect of sharing their worries with someone who's not judging them, not solving their problems for them, which is hard. Because we want to help them, but we have to let them find the solutions, and ask them questions like, what do you think is going to help? Have you seen other friends do something like this? How did they solve it? What are you going to try? What's one thing that you could try tomorrow? And let them work through it. And then they often have a plan at the end of your scheduled period, and they're able to go off and have a nice evening and not be worried about everything. Some kids love these worry eaters on the left, and they're all really cute little designs. I have one at school, and when I was full-time in a school, kids would come in and they would put their little worry in the mouth and they would zip it closed. Will you keep this safe for me? Yep, I sure will. And by the time they'd come back, they're like, oh, I fixed this. This is taken care of. But the whole concept is your worry eater, your worry box. This is a journal. I haven't seen it, but I Googled it and oops, careful. It looks good. This is a place to put your worries until you have time to deal with them. And again, a lot of times the kids have already solved the problem, and then they're feeling like, oh, well, I know how to do this stuff. But if they didn't have the tangible place to put them for some of these real concrete kids, then they keep the worries inside. And so this is, well, we're going to keep it safe for you. Just go be a kid. Okay. I don't look at them unless they ask me to. Mindfulness is that feeling of I'm here now. Worries in the future. I'm going to stay right here. I'm sitting at my kitchen table. I'm surrounded by dogs and cats. I'm getting a little hungry. How am I feeling right now in this actual moment? And I'm not worried because that's in the future. And so there's also a lot of books for that. These are great books for little kids, but even the older kids love Moody Cow. And they love this, some of the other books that gives them strategies to stay in the present. One of my schools is Stevens Elementary, and after every recess, they're one that's attached to lunch and they're one that's not. They have a 10 to 15 minute mindfulness period. So those kids are really good about regulation. And I'll tell you, regulation is what it all comes down to. When I was going through my training and, my practicum stuff, they were all talking about, you've got to have kids do a task to get a reward. And so when I was working with those kids who were too aggressive for the general classroom, that was the mindset that I had. Well, you got to get your math done and then you can have a break. Well, and what happened was often they would then trash the room, then the bus would come, they're still trashing the room or it's not cleaned up. I can't put an unsafe kid on a bus. So they had to stay. Sometimes we were there till 5 or 6 at night, was not unusual because they had to clean up. They still had to do their math and we had to solve the problem. So the next day was a fresh start. What I've learned only in about the last 5 or 6 years is that's garbage. If you're not regulated, you can't do that math sheet. And so instead of calling it a break, I call them, do you need a regulation activity? What do you need? Maybe 5 minutes of drawing is going to get them back in their head, reconnect their brain so they can be successful. And I wish I had known this when I was working with those kids with such high needs, because I think life would have been happier for all of us. They wouldn't have trashed the room and felt bad and had to clean it. And sometimes, there was damage to stuff that they had to pay for. Not always, but, broken windows, that kind of stuff. So letting kids know, be in the moment, stay in the moment, what does it mean to be present? All those things are really important for kids. And if they're not regulated and you're telling them go clean their room, they're not going to be able to clean their room till they regulate. So that's something that has been really, really huge for me. Letting thoughts pass. Sometimes, these worries, these, niggling little doubts come in and just swat them away. I like this picture of King Kong. He's got the plane or something in his hands, just swat them away and teach kids to do that. You know what? I was a little worried about my taxes aren't done. I'm going to do them on Saturday. Whatever. That's a really fun strategy because kids can physically. Systematic desensitization, we used to call a different name, but it's just doing baby steps. It can be a success ladder that we're going to talk about, but say you're afraid of spiders. Okay, especially big spiders. Well, where could you find a big spider? I don't know about you, but Rosie at the Butterfly Pavilion is a huge favorite of all my students. Well, I'm afraid of spiders. I was terrified. If I saw a spider as a kid, I wouldn't go in that room. I'd be screaming for my dad. He traveled a lot for work. My mom was like, "What is wrong?" And it's like, there's a terrible, scary spider in here. Well, so take the kids, drive by the Butterfly Pavilion. Just drive by. Then maybe the next time you're going to stop in the parking lot, but you're not going to get out of the car. Then maybe the third time you're going to get out of the car, but you're not going to go anywhere. And maybe the fourth time is you're going to walk up towards the door, but you're not ready to go in. And then maybe the fifth time you're going to go in and you're going to look at people holding Rosie. Now, you never have to hold Rosie, but if you're too afraid to go into the Butterfly Pavilion because there's like 50 tarantulas in there, there's 50 Rosies or so, that's a really good place to work on those kind of things and realize that spider doesn't want to hurt you. That spider's probably pretty scared. So this is one that's really helpful. Kids going to a new school or starting school, same thing. Drive by the school, park in the parking lot, walk them up to the door. You might need to do that 8, 10, 20 times over the summer before school starts. So knowing your kid, knowing what fears they have is huge. Now, the success ladder, I love because you have the kids help you with what's the easy first step. You're not deciding the first steps. They're deciding what step is hard and what step is scary, and they're creating a ladder. And so they start with rating. So what's giving you just that mild discomfort? I'm uncomfortable. I have butterflies in my stomach. I'm sweaty. My knees are weak. And then that's the bottom part of your ladder. And you have the kids label them. And again, if we go back to the butterfly pavilion, the 1 to 3 could be driving by the butterfly pavilion, stopping in the parking lot, but not getting out, and stopping and just standing outside my car. Maybe those are my first 3 steps of my success ladder. Moderate discomfort. Oh my gosh, you want me to walk across the parking lot? You want me to walk up to the stairs? You want me to actually walk through the door? Maybe those are my next steps. You want me to get up and be within 5 feet of Rosie? That's terrifying. So those are things that right now are giving them severe discomfort until they have success with these lower steps. And then they're building confidence, like, oh, I can do this. So that's a really good strategy to do with your kids because, again, you're getting their input on how scary it is for them and letting them decide how to proceed. Again, we talked about the regulation activities. Anything that helps reconnect your prefrontal cortex and amygdala is a great strategy. A lot of times using ice or cold washcloths on the back of your neck, on your face. Some people like warm, but I have found with most of the kids that a cool pack for anxiety is more successful. Some of the schools are using the emotions elevator. And so you're identifying, is it a small, medium, or large problem? And if it's a large problem, your emotional elevator is up here, or maybe it's a small problem, but your elevator is up here. And so there's a disconnect between how you're responding to what level it is. On the lower left, I love this strategy. You're using your 5 senses. You can do it in any order, but I've found that the smell and the taste really has to be 1 and 2. But you want them to look around and acknowledge 5 things that they can see. And they have to say it out loud. It doesn't have to be loud for everyone to hear, but they need to hear it because that starts reconnecting your brain. So I see my dog, I see the computer, I see my phone, blah, blah, blah. 4 things that you can touch, and then I'm going to say them. I can touch my table, I can touch my water bottle, it's cold, 3 things you can hear. My dog Ella's woofing a little bit. Now Harlow she just went through the dog door. Then things that you can smell, which hopefully is only a couple unless you're in a middle school classroom. Then that Axe body spray. And then 1 thing that you can taste. Most of us have a taste in our mouth, even if it's not, you don't really identify it. Cognitive hooks is another great way to help kids regulate. Rhyming words, skip counting, doing rhythms, and have the kids just follow you. And don't even ask them to do it. Just start. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and they'll go along with you. And so one of my friends, we did a presentation on this, and she's like, oh, I haven't tried that before. I have a kid who elopes. And so this girl's running down the hall and she yells 87 plus 43. And the girl stops, tells her the answer, and then runs again, but not as fast. And she throws out another math problem. So those kind of things, without telling kids that that's what you're doing, just throwing it out because they like to be successful. And those are just kind of some fun ways to do it. 2 other strategies are then what? Well, I'm going to go to prom and nobody's going to ask me to dance. Well, then what? Well, I'm going to be really embarrassed. Well, but then what? Well, and then go through it. All right, you're going to prom. What's the worst case scenario? Well, sorry, Mike, but maybe I'm going to bleed through my dress. I'm afraid because I have my period, I'm going to bleed through my dress. And so, okay, Has that happened? Well, not with a dress, but it's happened with jeans. And go through these things. And again, you're just asking them questions about their fears. And then talk to kids about what causes them to worry. When you see them using a breathing technique, ask them to teach it to you. What else helps them to reconnect their flip lid? So we did that was my little medication alarm. And we only have 2 slides left, so we did pretty well. One, try to make a success ladder for you before you try it with a child. Think about something that scares you. We all have fears, and they might not be huge because we have great strategies to deal with them during the day, but maybe they pop up at 2 in the morning, which is that anxious time of night. 2 to 4 in the morning, if you're waking up at that time, there's usually an anxiety that you're not aware of or not dealing with well. And then again, break the behavior into 8 to 10 little mini steps, give them each a scare rating, and give it a shot. And then when you're talking to your child then you have an experience. I wanted to be a skier, but I was always really afraid of skiing because I'm afraid I'm going to break my leg. So maybe you're going to try some things for having a day at the ski slope. Have to be next year because I think they just closed. But that's a really fun thing for you to try. This is one that we don't have time with because I want to respect your time, but just some things that you could do. And this is a great way if you're ever on a meeting on Zoom, you have everybody type an answer to a question in the chat, but you don't hit send until everybody is done or whatever the time limit is. So it's it's called a waterfall. And so everybody's answers come in and it's not like, oh, well, Shauna put this, so because I think she's cool, I'm gonna no, it's your own thinking. And it's a great way. And it's a great way to get kids to share as well. And